All right. Um, we've got a great panel here today. I'll quickly introduce myself, and then we can go down the line with your respective projects, roles, and maybe 1 to 2 sentences of kind of summarizing your project. So I'm Patrick Kresnicki again, a research analyst on Messari's protocol research team, specializing in layer 2s, layer 1s, and kind of the infrastructure that supports these different networks.
Hi, I'm Hilmar, one of the founders of Gelato. We are one of the most widely used role-of-the-service platforms and also market leader in smart contract automation.
Hello, I'm Zahn, one of the co-founders of Inisha. Inisha is a network for interwoven rollups. We're holistically rebuilding how multi-chain networks should look, feel, and operate through a layer 1 and a interconnected system of layer 2s.
And my name is Alex. I'm Heideka. I'm the founder of ZK Sync. We are the largest ZK ecosystem on Ethereum and most advanced ZK rollup technology provider.
Just doing quick introductions.
Hey guys, I'm Nikhil. I work at Alchemy, and we are the kind of infra layer powering Web3.
Awesome. So I want to start with Alex and Zahn here. What's the design space when a developer is architecting a layer 2 blockchain? Specifically in your networks, like what are the top customizations that your tech stacks either enable or you believe will enable in future?
Yeah, so on Inisha, layer 2s are full-fledged Cosmos SDK chains. So everything that you could do on a traditional Cosmos chain, like change the way transactions are ordered, the way that they're processed, things that you see on basically Osmosis or Berachain or DYDX or Celestia, are all essentially possible on Inisha. And then we support 3 different VMs. So EVM, MoveVM, and WASM VM, because we believe that VMs are tools, and you should pick the smart contracting language depending on what application you're building. So there's also things like changing the gas fees, etc., but I think those are bare bones customization these days.
And on ZK Sync, we're offering a ZK VM stack where you can deploy applications that are compatible with EVM. So you get all the benefits from the EVM ecosystem and the security of a ZK rollup on Ethereum. On top of that, you have things like native account abstraction and more efficient operating of state diffs. Native account abstraction enables Web 2-like UX today, and this is what we see people like a lot about the ZK stack and the applications that are being built there. But the really interesting design space is being opened with the 3rd generation of the ZK Sync protocol, which we call the Elastic Chain, which is a network of rollups, a network of L2s that contain general-purpose L2s and application-specific L2s, and that will be interoperable as one seamless ecosystem. It will feel like one single chain. And that is really interesting, and this is what we see a lot of demand for.
Okay. And Hilmar, I want to talk about Gelato, one of the early RaaS providers. You guys support over 50 rollups today, and as more rollups are coming online, I'm curious, what has Gelato's strategy been to kind of maintain that dominance and continue growing your service?
Yeah. So at Gelato, we believe that every application will have their own rollup eventually. But I think what we realized when talking to projects, especially those that have been using us for like the past 4 years, we have over 500 projects using our tools on across 50 chains, that a rollup solves scalability for them and like the noisy neighbor problem and reducing gas costs. But really, it is all about what applications they really want to create and what problems can they having their own rollups solve for their specific use case. So what we are very focused on at Gelato is building what we call our native modules that are these modules that you can sort of think of as being add-ons to general purpose rollup frameworks and blockchains, such as our smart contract automation framework, VFable randomness, or also like account abstraction services. And with these, you can actually, while like also tapping into how blocks should be built and sequenced, you can really solve problems that, let's say, a perpdex or some other application cannot solve on a like open public blockchain like Ethereum today. And so we are very razor focused on these. And then this is, I think, why applications and projects choose us as a rollup, as a service provider.
Okay. Nikhil, I want to transfer it over to you. So Alchemy recently launched their Rollup as a Service solution back in June. And obviously you guys provide a variety of different infrastructure services. But curious how you've managed to gain traction with some chains like WorldCoin, for example. What's the strategy been there, and kind of compare and contrast maybe with Gelato being a newer player in the RaaS space?
Yeah, totally. So maybe for a bit of context, I'm actually curious, how many of you guys use or have heard of Alchemy? Raise your hand. Okay, pretty good coverage. So for context, we started in 2017 as the kind of full stack developer platform for applications. And today, we've been very fortunate to work with the OpenSeas and the large Web2 companies and all the, kind of blue chip DeFi companies to power their applications. One thing we heard over the years, especially over the last year or two, was saying, hey, we want to launch our own chain. And we've, done this for hundreds of chains for the last 7 years and kind of really focused every single day on building a truly reliable, scalable system. So what we heard from developers kind of front and center was they wanted three things. And if you're thinking about launching your chain, there's kind of three main things that are important to you. One is that it's reliable, so it stays up and it can scale. The second one is developers are able to easily build on it, which means you need kind of like a comprehensive developer platform. And the third one is chains want distribution, so developers can come build apps on their chain. So we had kind of like really specialized in those three things over the last 7 years. So for us, it's really just been about opening up our internal infrastructure, which provides the reliability, the full dev platform, and the distribution to other chains. So we've been, like you mentioned, WorldCoin, they do over 50% of all the transactions on Optimism. We're very excited to partner with them and have a bunch of other ones that are announcing or have come out. Like Shape actually announced their mainnet yesterday.
Awesome. So blockchains are increasingly modularizing, and I'd love to go down the line here and speak to your respective tech stacks or RaaS solutions. What are you guys seeing either developers be requesting in terms of customizations, or what decisions have you made that you're working on to kind of further bring your tech stacks or RaaS solutions along? What's next down the pipeline for each of you?
Yeah, I can start maybe. So I think we are past the point where projects and developers want just the next vanilla general purpose EVM blockchain. I think talking to a bunch of them already, there's no value add and no differentiation factor if you now deploy the 100th just vanilla OP stack chain, right? And you just want to build another ecosystem. I think that sort of meta is over. So it is all about really what benefits does owning the chain really bring to you when you want to build specific applications. I think we're now entering this space. So for me, I'm very bullish application-specific blockchains. And what we are really focused on is working together with certain use cases such as perp dexes. For example, Rhea, the biggest Arbitrum Orbit chain, is a perp dex on Gelato. And how can we actually help them solve the issues around MEV, arbitrage, toxic flow for their specific use case, going into the stack, going into how blocks should be built for their particular use case, or even enterprises as well, where this permissionless nature of current rollup stacks might are cool for chains that want to scale Ethereum, but if you want to, be OFAC compliant or have certain sort of permissions in your system, then it might not be that cool. For example, Fox News is using us for that. And so we are going down these different sort of avenues, and I believe you have to really think use case specific here and see what tools and services you have to build around these stacks.
Yeah, I think so this modular thing got very popular, and now we're seeing a lot of app chains being built on Ethereum. I think I completely agree that like general purpose EVM L2s are just cooked. Like it doesn't even matter if it uses a different proving framework. Like no one cares about a general purpose EVM L2 anymore. So we know that there's going to be the rise of these application-specific rollups, but we saw a lot of these application-specific chains built in Cosmos for the past 5-6 years. The problem was that Cosmos never had a good stewarding hand, and so there's just a huge problem with liquidity fragmentation, but also just the difficulty to actually build a layer 1 because you have to bootstrap a validator set, you have to deal with inflation, you have to deal with token supply, and it's just a hard thing to manage. So what's nice about rollups on Initia is they are full-fledged Cosmos SDK chains. And in Cosmos, we have built a lot of the things that people are now building for rollups on Ethereum already. So the ways that we can tap in to change the way that transactions are ordered, like that's existed in Cosmos for like 2 years. Native account abstraction, that's also existed there. And so using a tech stack that is already widely used, that an entire ecosystem contributes towards it, and everybody can share in the benefits of their developments as this new rollup primitive really unlocks a lot of the ability to create these customizations in a much easier way than any other rollup service, because Cosmos SDK is the most flexible framework to build unique blockchains. And then Initia is very opinionated on how these systems should work. We're not a vending machine at all. A lot of RaaS providers, like they say, you can choose this Oracle service or this DA layer or this interoperability solution. And I think that's really great. Gives flexibility and choice, and it's good for the vending machine company. But it isn't necessarily good for the way that applications can, grow together to be able to ensure that they have that interoperability from day one. And so Initia's entire system from L1 to L2 to everything in between is opinionated, and we only have basically one system for how things work. So as you spin up a rollup on Initia, you already have oracles that are enshrined. You have layer 0 and IBC enshrined. You have native USDC and CCTP access. You have fiat on-ramps. You have like the wallet connection modals, the bridge connection modals, all those sorts of things just built in from day one, and you never have to deal with them. And that is very advantageous because you don't have fragmentation later on. And so we basically learned from the best of Cosmos and the worst of it, and are kind of building like a new entire system for how rollups should be built and the multi-chain should expand.
Yeah, really great points. Developers care about things that, so like, they are going to build customizations for their own chain themselves. That's what the application chain thesis is about. They need a general purpose infrastructure which is basically invisible, and on top of that, they will build whatever they need. Like, the enabling blocks in this infrastructure are giving them sovereignty, or at least autonomy, to actually be able to do what you want without depending on others. So, like, for example, if you're building a chain and you're forced to use shared sequencing with other chains in your ecosystem in order to interoperate, you're giving up some of your sovereignty. If you are, you depend on some centralized providers for whatever, you're giving up part of sovereignty there. Sovereignty, this autonomy is number one. Number two is you still want to be part of the ecosystem. No one wants to build an island. I think Cosmos illustrates this perfectly. This is not confined to your own rollup cluster, which I think is this new emerging category. But it also goes further. Like, you want to build on some like broad settlement layer with access to liquidity. So like, building a rollup on Ethereum is, I think, giving people a lot of security and benefits and access to users and liquidity from Ethereum, but still being part of the rollup cluster with seamless interoperability is what enables them to actually, not just do their own small thing which no one can access. And the third thing, which is specific to ZK Sync and what ZK rollups can uniquely provide as in terms of customization, which is not possible anywhere else in the blockchain world, is privacy out of the box. And we see this with enterprise customers, with banks, with institutions that are building their own private chains. They want the other two benefits. They want sovereignty or autonomy. They want full control over the chain. They want to be part of the larger ecosystem. They don't want to be able to build isolated chains like they used to do before with the private blockchain frameworks. Like, they realize that this is a dead end, and they want to be talking to other banks, to other enterprises, but also to create native projects. But they want the data to be private, and you can only do it with ZK proofs and basically get it for free from ZK Stack.
It's a great question around what you think about in terms of modularity when creating an ecosystem. And I think the most important thing to remember is when you're launching a chain, you're not launching a product, you're launching an ecosystem. And whether you want other builders to build on your chain from day one or sometime in the future, you need to think about all of the services that they need to get started. So when the number one thing that we see is developers will spin up a chain and then they say, okay, I want to go get Uniswap to build on our chain and to deploy on our chain. How do we do that? And then you basically have to go down the list of things that Uniswap needs, or any other DeFi application needs. Do they have an API to get NFTs? Do they have an API to get token balances? Do they have an API to get transaction history? Do they have subgraph support? Do they have account abstraction? And one of our core focuses, and I think Zon made a really great point here around like bringing all of the tools out of the box. We've chosen a slightly different approach where we want to give developers options. We have kind of the full platform that we offer, but we also partner with, the DA layers and the bridges and the oracles to give people whichever option they want. They can just click and get it. And one of the things that I think Alex touched on, so we're actually a partner with ZK Sync, and we're actually really excited to, I think today or coming up soon, we're going to be announcing Elastic Chain support. You heard it here first on mainnet. But interoperability is a huge, huge challenge, and we're really excited about the approach that ZK Sync has taken by creating this ecosystem of chains that can all natively interoperate. And that, we think, will be absolute game-changing, because if you think about the user experience here, when you have to bridge assets across all of these different chains, it's a very fragmented experience, and providing a level of, and there's a lot of teams that are working on chain abstraction, but I think if you can provide it natively like ZK Sync does, that's an absolute game changer, and we're super excited about that.
That's cool you brought up the ZK Stack support there. My next question was going to be for Gelato and Alchemy. What's the challenge for integrating some of these new tech stacks that are coming out? ZK Stack was one of them, but you're introducing support, maybe OP Init Stack as well. What's the challenge for adding some of these new tech stacks?
Yeah, I think in general the challenge is not that great, right? For us, it's more about that. I think we are now in a sort of phase where there's of course this explosion of different tech stacks, and if you look at them, they are not that differentiated from each other. Of course, they have like smaller adjustments here and there, and they have maybe a focus on ZK there, but we believe that most of them will sort of look very, very similar over time. And then the question for us, for example, as a role-based service provider, is more about, okay, which of these stacks are we actually long-term bullish on, that people would like to use them? And this is, I think, partially based on which stack is able to create a good ecosystem around their technology, right? And it's really not about the tech it's not only about the tech, it's really about building this ecosystem. And so we actually sort of are very careful in onboarding new stacks to our platform, because we know that, let's say you run these chains in production, and we did run some stacks that were actually, that turned out to be not as stable as we sort of desired them to be. And it can cause significant problems down the road in terms of maintenance and everything. And so I think you have to be very, very careful in which stacks you support. And so every time we do our due diligence, take our time to really investigate how good it is and what the ecosystem is that builds around it. And so, we are quite careful when it comes to that.
From our perspective, we have a kind of very intense focus on reliability and uptime. So most people don't realize this today, but at Alchemy, we power about 65% of all DeFi TVL. We do about $100 billion in transactions annually. We power like any app that you use. Like our first 4 users now it's like millions of developers, but the first user was this random side project that I said, oh, no one's going to use this thing, but we'll just use it because we need somebody to use our product in 2017. And it was CryptoPunks. And now, they're $1 million each. I didn't click and claim one. It was basically free at the time. Still regret it. Our user number 2 was OpenSea. User number 4 is CryptoKitties and Dapper Labs. User number 12 was 0x. So kind of from the beginning, we had these applications which had a lot of users and had to be super, super reliable. So when we powered all of the backbone of Instagram for all their crypto and NFT stuff, or Snapchat or Shopify, these are teams that require to, to Facebook, we are a tiny company. We raised $500 million and they are like, you guys are a tiny startup, right? So for us, like when we work with players like that, we need to provide the ultimate reliability. Like we cannot go down even for 1 second. So over the last 7 years, we spent massive amounts of, hundreds and hundreds of thousands of engineering hours building out this system that powers all of our infrastructure. So when we think about adding a new tech stack to our product, it's not just something we kind of spin up without an afterthought. It's like we integrate it into this kind of really robust platform, which results in a kind of very reliable, robust, scalable system that can scale to billions of users, like as we've already seen in the case of Instagram. So I think the point of saying this is like when we choose to partner with someone, it is a very kind of very, very, very serious thought we put into it, because we don't partner with someone unless we say we are going to give an absolutely incredible experience. So the bar for us has to be really high. And I think, to mention ZK Sync again, we just saw this was such a groundbreaking technology and could really transform the way interoperability worked and kind of completely change the blockchain experience. So we said, all right, this is going to be a massive effort, but we're really excited to partner with them because we think they will like totally change how blockchain happens. So I think we have a slightly different approach in terms of how quickly we partner or services we roll out.
So probably the last question here. We have 3.5 minutes left. We have 4 founders here. I'm curious how each of you think about communicating your respective projects' visions. What kind of users is your solution ideal for? How do you guys think about that and strategize around that as a founder? Maybe we could start with Zahn and Alex.
So I think when communicating the vision, there's a lot of stuff that you can easily point to as references, but it's hard because right now, no one wants to be associated with Cosmos. It's just like a massive L to be associated with it. And so when building an entire new system that is somewhat similar to Cosmos, somewhat similar to things like the superchain, you really have to craft your own narrative and make sure that that vision is pushed. And I think we've done a great job by branding this word interwoven, which really describes what Initia is trying to achieve. Not only is every app chain that is built on Initia immediately connected to every other chain, whether that be a Cosmos chain, EVM, Move, other chains on Initia, but it also describes the way that the ecosystem has been built so far. Each chain on Initia is kind of value positive to every single other one. And they all basically work together in a good way to grow the pie. And I like to say that, Initia is kind of like the Fed, which is not always a great analogy in crypto. But, we're kind of like the guiding hand, and each chain on Initia is a state. And so even though they can do whatever they want and control their own space, they still care about the collective growth of Initia or the country as a whole. Whereas I view rollups on Ethereum right now as a lot more like the EU, where Ethereum is Brussels, and we all went to Brussels, and no one liked that place.
That's really interesting. For ZK Sync, the mission of ZK Sync from day one was to accelerate the mass adoption of crypto for increasing sovereignty of individuals around the world and pushing for more freedom. And the way we do it is by building this Internet of Value. Like, this is the original vision for Bitcoin, for Ethereum specifically, because Ethereum is the extension of the cypherpunk values with smart contracts, with things you can do like programmable money and also programmable finance, free finance, finance 2.0. But the way you build the Internet of Value is by building many chains. Like, the Internet does not run on a single server. I think everyone agrees here. Like, every single application will have their own chains, or like the group of chains. Like, you cannot do it on a single chain, no matter what, like how much you sacrifice decentralization. So if the ultimate vision is this world with many chains, the ultimate challenge is to make them interoperable and composable. That's the challenge of the crypto world, and that's the challenge of Ethereum, which role should not be the coordinating entity like Brussels, but more like just this settlement layer, like a single place where all the proofs and state is converging. So for us, it's building that for Ethereum. And building that in an interoperable way requires ZK proofs as a first-class citizen. You can only do it with ZK. We're very strongly opinionated about that.
So we're out of time here, but Hilmar and Nikhil want to give you just an opportunity for 1 or 2 sentences, maybe how you think about communicating the vision for Gelato and Alchemy.
Yeah.
We believe that every application will have their own rollup. We hope that at some point you don't talk about rollups or blockchains anymore, but just the applications actually. And we don't think that most applications want to scale Ethereum or want to scale another ecosystem. They want to scale their application to many, many users. And so we are building a platform that tries to focus on this and facilitate this.
And I think for us, it's pretty simple. When you're launching a chain, like I said earlier, you want three things. You want a stable platform, you want all the services developers need to build on your chain, and you want distribution to millions of developers. And our goal is to, the big picture goal is to bring 1 billion people into Web3. And the way we do that is by giving the chains and developers these three pieces that they need. Today we power millions of developers, but hopefully in the future, working together with awesome people like on this panel, we can bring millions and millions and millions of tens of millions of developers into Web3.
Inshallah.
Thank you, guys. Thank you to the audience as well.
Good job.